Okay, well, we're joined by Ian Hart, who's just at Marseille Airport at the moment, following Brighton's 2-2 draw in the Europa League Group B match. It was an eventful game. Brighton went 2-0 down after just 20 minutes, looked really shaky for a while, but the halftime break seemed to revitalise them a bit, and they pulled a goal back through Pascal Gross, and then a late penalty from João Pedro made it 2-2 and kept Brighton's Europa League dream alive, basically. And Ian, you've been in Marseille. You've had an eventful 48 hours, to say the least.
Yes, indeed.
How would you sum up your time?
Look, it's been as I said to you before we came on. When you've been to Rochdale away on a Tuesday night, this is a cakewalk, old son. You know, and the challenges thrown at you. I think you're so right. It was a game of two halves. We got delayed with Tony Bloom was on our plane. We got delayed, and quickly before we talk about the football, huge shout out to the club because they sent a bus for us and they got our tickets picked up. We actually got in there after 38 minutes and Brighton started playing, so they must have known that we turned up.
So you arrived at the stadium 38 minutes late because of the delays, and also
it was a 3-hour delay with British Airways, and we'll be looking into that because there's various issues. Tony was superb. Tony, I think you put it on your social media. Darren, Tony got up and addressed the plane, and put all our minds at rest. And it was superb. But on to the game, when we got there, Brighton started playing at the end of the first half, and probably had a chance with Danny Welbeck that on another night might have gone in. I think at 2-1 at half time, Brighton go on and win that game. I mean, I'm still, as much as it's the experience, and I'll take a point. As a great save from the Marseille keeper from Matoma,
you know, and second half effort.
And Adringa had a chance. Look, the group is still wide open, and we've got 2 home games that we have to win. I am, you know, and I know Frankie has alluded to it. The size of the squads and all of these changes, I think in some ways it can be counterproductive.
It stops players from getting into a rhythm, doesn't it, a bit? But can you give us a flavour of what the atmosphere was like there, Ian? It was it looked pretty special on the TV last night. But what was it like to be a fan at the Velodrome?
Not you two youngsters, because you're far too young, right? But I went to the FA Cup final when it meant something in 1983 against Manchester United, 100,000 people, an electric atmosphere. 2 years later, I went to Celtic Rangers at Celtic Park, and that was more than an atmosphere. That was almost sinister. That was fanaticism. Yeah. I have been to Brighton Palace games. I've watched Brighton in 106 different stadiums in competitive games. I have never seen a set of fans like that last night. And there is an argument that Brighton might have been overawed by that atmosphere. It was absolutely electric. I mean, they've obviously got some fans that have got a little bit of a reputation here, but they are just relentless. Yeah. Watch out, Sussex, because these boys, if we thought Athens were fanatical, we've seen nothing like these boys.
Yeah, there were a few issues afterwards, Ian. I don't know if you heard or was caught up in it. There was some fans were held back for a couple of hours, weren't they? Afterwards.
Yeah.
Did you hear about that? And did you experience anything like that?
Yeah. We were basically penned in on the stairs at the stadium for a good hour. I actually turned to my son and his friends. You know, this is like something out of Country File. You know, we're like farmyard animals. So there were clearly people behind us who didn't make it, because when we got downstairs eventually and the police let us through, it was like a free for all. There are buses, get on them. I think health and safety went out of the way, and you know, and we had a 45-minute bus journey back into the city centre, and on all the Brighton buses, it says, this bus takes 49 seated and 22 standing. Well, that went out the window because they crammed us in, shoehorned us in to all these buses last night. I do feel sorry for the fans that were left behind, and obviously there are issues to be addressed. But in the club's defence, and I'm quick to criticise the club when they need criticising, you cannot fault the club for everything they did. I think the issues are on the Marseille side and perhaps UEFA side. Just one thing that I would say: why do we have to pick up our tickets in the city centre? We're all adults. We're all consenting adults. Why can't we be sent our match tickets in advance before we leave England?
Yeah, that seems to have made more sense. Did that cause us some troubles for some fans to try and get the tickets first? Because I think because your flights were delayed, didn't the club organise the tickets to be with you at a certain point?
Yeah. But we still had to go to we still had to drive 40 minutes to the pickup point, and then another half an hour to the stadium to pick our tickets up. And it was only thanks to the gendarmes, bonjour, merci beaucoup, or whatever. We had a police escort to the stadium that would have put Donald Trump to shame. Yeah, we had blues and twos and everything. So we need to address, because the Amsterdam thing is going to be not worse, but what you've got to remember is you're going to have 5,000 or 6,000 Brighton fans there, because you're going to have thousands of fans who are going without tickets because of the atmosphere and the occasion and all the things that Amsterdam has to offer.
Yeah, but what was the overall mood of the Brighton fans though? Were they? I imagine they
all right.
Enjoyed. There were some issues, but they must have enjoyed the experience as well at the same time, I guess.
On those stone stairs, even though we were there for an hour, I think we must have come out with every song in the Greatest Hits album. It was really brilliant. It was sort of, I was choked up at times. It was like being 14 again in the North Stand. It was absolutely brilliant. It was a sing-song to end all sing-songs.
Yeah. You were speaking beforehand as well. And you said you almost felt quite emotional, really, because it was sort of such a huge occasion for Brighton.
Yeah, because there was son as well. Yeah, there was lots of fans that haven't made it. My mate Richard Hanks, my mate Darren Pollard, Mary Emery, although she'd have been 99 last week, so she probably wouldn't have gone. But lots of Roy Shooter, Sarah Watts, all the people that helped fight to save the club. And it was so sad that they weren't there. So there was a tinge with a little bit of sadness. Gets even sadder when you're 2-0 down. But, we fought back because we are Brighton. We were dead and buried in 1997, but we fought back. And last night was shades of 97. We were effectively dead and buried. Looked like rabbits in the headlights. And then from somewhere we came, and this is why we've got Clark Kent in the old dugout, haven't we? We've got Superman in the dugout.
he's doing all right.
Because he's there. I got told off by Tony Bloom yesterday for my choice of tracksuit.
Oh, you met him at Heathrow. You met Tony Bloom at Heathrow Airport, didn't you?
The first thing he said, Harty, did you not get the memo? But I thought I like the 70s. I'm stuck in them, many people say. And even though I'm knocking 60, I think you can still wear a Beckenbauer tracksuit top. You can still carry it off at 59. And and there was a lot of replica shirts in there. So either people didn't get the email or people chose to read it. Gentlemen, I've got Harty Jr. tapping his phone, tapping his watch, as we speak.
Right. Okay.
I will see you all back. Frankie, can I just ask you, is the dream alive? Can we get out of this group?
Absolutely. If the second half performance is anything to go off, then Brighton's got a real chance.
And one more question, Frankie, because you are my new footballing guru. Do we go with our strongest team against Liverpool? I don't like this stop-start. I didn't realise there was a stat before the Aston Villa game that Brighton had done the most changes in the Premier League.
Mm. Yeah,
24. My Harty Jr. is telling me 24 24 changes. That's a lot, isn't it?
Well, I think we're nearly close to 40 now in the last since that Villa game, because obviously there was another 9 for the Villa game, and I don't know how many was there last night, but certainly more than 5
last night.
5 last night. So I think the issue is, Ian, that we don't know what that best team is at the moment, and I don't know if we're any closer after the last run of games. So he should do, but what that actually looks like is I'm not actually sure, and that's the issue at the moment.
Yeah.
But I'll leave you. Viva Pedro, but Viva Lamptey. It's great because a lot of people were writing him off, and he's the boy's back. And don't forget, he's an adopted Worthing boy, Lamptey, as is Billy Gilmore. Up the Seagulls, boys. I'm off. Take care. Cheers, boys. Bye.
Don't miss your flight, Ian. Well, that was Ian from Marseille. Obviously, he's had an eventful few hours there, Frankie, and. But it wasn't it? It's sort of like Brighton sort of built a reputation this season. They're known for their classy play and attacking style, but it just seemed to be sheer determination and willpower that got them that point in the end yesterday.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, it was really interesting because since he's been appointed, which is now over a year, Roberto De Zerbi's always spoken about mentality, how he's trying to change the mentality of the club to being winners, to being a big club. And it's hard. It's easy to say those sort of things. It's, you never really see it in practice as obviously as it was last night. Brighton have normally won games because they've tactically outworked teams, they've outplayed teams, and last night it wasn't a case that, as you say, it was more a case of when things are going against you and your backs are against the wall like they were, to be 2-0 down and to concede 2 goals so quickly in the manner that they did. A lot of teams away from home in Europe would crumble, and
especially on the back of that Villa result as well.
Especially on the back of that Villa result, and what we'd expect from Brighton when they lose games is they normally lose games quite heavily. So yeah, you were expecting, really, I think a lot of people after about half an hour were expecting the 3rd or 4th goal to go in for Marseille, but they regrouped well, and second half they were the better team by, they're the only team that looked like they were going to score. The changes worked, and every sub that came on had a real impact. Obviously, João Pedro got the equaliser, and they managed to get a draw. And to be honest, they looked like the only team that were going to win. They could have won the game in regards to how they were playing. It felt that a 3rd goal could come and maybe should have come with a dingus chance at the end, but overall there are positive signs, I think, for how Brighton can play, especially away from home in Athens and Ajax. They've shown that they've got character, which is really, really important.
Yeah, you kind of hope that they don't seem to have that control over the games that they used to, did they? They used to go to teams and then have that sort of element of control where the teams just couldn't get the ball off them, and then Brighton would go through their patterns of play and then start the attacks. But that control is missing at the moment, isn't it? And there's something just not quite clicking, but they found a way in the end.
Yeah, I mean, there's no getting away from it. It wasn't the fact that they were playing once a week was to why there was all these players were brilliant, because they had one of the best midfielders in the Premier League last year, and that has now gone. McAllister and Caicedo are no longer there. Yeah. The control that you speak about, and also not only the control with the ball, but also the sort of defensive control. I know Brian lost a couple of games quite heavily last season, but they were never really out of many games, and they never really felt threatened by a number of big chances coming against them because of when they lost the ball, they dealt with losing the ball very, very well. But that's gone. At the moment, that's gone. And we knew that would happen. Caicedo is very, very difficult to replace, and also McAllister's qualities are missing as well. So they have lost that, and I think I described it after the Chelsea game. They look very clunky at the moment. It doesn't seem to flow as smoothly when they're on the ball, and that was definitely evident last night. Even when they were playing well in the second half, there were a lot of misplayed passes, and they weren't flowing as well. But the positive signs is, while they don't know their best team at the moment, the fact that they can change the game from the bench this season will be a strong asset, because that was an issue last year, was the fact that he was so reliant on his first 11 that he basically almost run them into the ground in a lot of games, and they didn't really have any plan Bs. But this year, thank God they do, because, as I say, it looked dead and buried after 20 minutes, and to be able to bring those players on in such a big game and make an impact is a really positive sign.
Yeah. Do you think the atmosphere got to them a bit in the first 20 minutes? They looked a little bit. They tried to sort of play, do the build up from the back. There was a lot of periods of play where Dunk had his foot on the ball and Van Hecker were trying to, but Marseille looked quite tight. And then they just lost their way a little bit, didn't they? Was that the atmosphere, or do you think it was just
Yeah.
the occasion, or lack of confidence, or a bit of both?
Absolutely. There's no shame in finding the atmosphere difficult, because it is. It's a very, very difficult environment to play in for any team. And it was, I think, the real case for that first half an hour was to stay in the game. That's the most important part. It doesn't really matter how you're playing, but you just need to be winning it, because you can find yourself 2 goals down very, very quickly. And unfortunately, Brighton weren't able to do that. I think, De Zerbi's football is high risk. And when it doesn't go well, that high risk means that normally it doesn't actually work out as successfully as it did last year when you've got the players to do it. So it was a case of a team coming in who were not playing particularly well recently, were not comfortable playing together as of yet, playing a football that isn't really suited to playing your first ever European away game unless you're doing it brilliantly, which they weren't. And Marseille benefited from that. And I feel almost to some extent they got too comfortable themselves going 2-0 up so quickly. I think they felt that they were, that game was,
they had this in the bag.
They had the game won, and probably took their foot off the gas, which Brighton capitalised on. But yeah, it was always going to. I think it was always going to be like that. That wasn't a surprise. I think maybe it was just a sign of where Brighton are at the moment. If they maybe had played this game with the team they had last year, they could have probably got through that first half an hour. But right now, that's a sort of I guess the result from the first half an hour that you can expect when they're playing like this.
Yeah. Pascal Gross, I thought him coming back in that midfield, he just adds that bit of class and a bit of control. But I thought Tariq Lamptey on the left as well. He was in for Pervis Estupiñán, who looks like he's going to be out for a month. He had one of his best games in a Brighton shirt, and perhaps Matoma as well. I thought in patches he looked very dangerous. But Lamptey and Gross in particular, I thought were really good last night.
Yeah, I think Pascal Gross is always, and will be showing more and more this season under De Zerbi. He's a big game player. He's always been Mr. Reliable for Brighton in a number of positions, but I've noticed in really important moments. I mean, obviously he got the landmark first ever Premier League goal. He got his first goal in Europe last night, but he's always turned up in the big occasions, and he's really proving himself to be a high level player. Now a German international, I think he deserves to stay in that team as well with the way he's playing. And he's more than suited to playing European football. He's got the quality to, and he's got the sort of characteristics and temperament to as well. And a fully deserved goal, because I thought he really dragged that team to that second half performance. And Tariq Lamptey, that's one of the big positives to take from last night, is they have a backup, because Estupiñán is their only recognised left back, and I think that is a slight concern, because he looked very leggy, I felt, on Saturday, having bearing in mind he's played every single game so far. He's obviously got the injury now, and obviously a lot of concerns about how they were going to, because that left-hand side link up between Estupiñán and Matoma is a big part of Brighton's attacking threat. But Tariq Lamptey brings that athleticism, he brings that attacking quality. He's so quick, he's so good at dribbling, that they still contains a lot of the same characteristics as Estupiñán has. So to see him do so well in such a big game in a position that he's not comfortable in will be a real positive sign for De Zerbi going forward, because he'll need him for the next month or so. Yeah,
I think he's got that spot. It would be hard to see Igor Julio coming in to replace him. I think Lamptey's should have that spot, but you never know with De Zerbi's rotation at the moment, do you? So it's anything could happen this season. But just looking at the group on a whole, so Brighton have got 1 point now. AEK Athens, they came back to get a draw at Ajax last night. So because they beat Brighton in the first game, they topped the group on 4 points. How do you see that? Do you think Brighton can still progress from this group?
Yeah, I do. But it's a double header against Ajax now. You'd feel they need to they certainly need to get a win from one of those. That's a game. I'd say they need to get 4 points from those two games, mainly because they're playing on paper at the moment, the worst team in the group, because the Ajax are not playing very well domestically or in Europe. So I feel that, especially when they play them at home, that's a must-win game. But also when they go, I mean, it'll be another tough atmosphere, and it'll be a great occasion to play in the Johan Cruyff Arena. But this is the key now, is to learn from this experience, understand what playing away from home in Europe can be, to manage that first 20, 30 minutes and actually go. They're not going I think De Zerbi's described it as being a tourist, but to not go there and be like, wow, this is amazing, what an achievement. But to go there and go, like, we're playing a team that we should beat here. We're playing better than them. If you look at the squads, you feel that you feel that more Brighton players are getting the Ajax team and vice versa. This is an opportunity now to take 4 points and give ourselves a more stable base for the two games against Marseille and Athens to finish. So it is still doable, but the next two games are crucial. If they don't pick up at least 3, then I would say the dream's over.
Yeah. But it's just so, like, at moments, it's just so great just to see Brighton perform in that atmosphere, wasn't it? Like, just to see them in with all the Europa League sort of sort of paraphernalia every day around, the atmosphere at the Velodrome last night, and just to see Brighton performing on that stage, it's still great, isn't it? For the fans, and then to have to play Ajax and play Marseille, and occasions like these, they're just priceless, aren't they, for the club and their supporters?
Amazing. The drama and pomp and circumstance of the away days in Europe are amazing to watch.
They are.
I think it is amazing to see Brighton there, competing in these sort of events. But I think the good thing is from last night, and also from the Athens game as well, is that they can compete there. There was a real concern after 20 minutes. So like, maybe Brighton are really out of their depth here, and this could finish quicker than it started, sort of thing. But they showed that they've got the quality, they've got the characteristics, and they've got the personnel to fight to be in there, to continue being there for as long as possible. So it is a great moment, but it's also deserved, and they've shown that why they deserve it, I think, last night.
Yeah. And then just a quick look ahead to Liverpool as well. Obviously, they had a win against Tony Bloom's club, Union SG. 2-0 win, looked quite comfortable. And Brighton now play Liverpool on Sunday. Quick turnaround again. How do you see that one going? Do you think there's going to be quite a few changes again, or do you think De Zerbi's going to try and settle it down a bit more now?
I still feel there'll be quite a few changes. I mean, this is a huge game for Brighton in regards to their season. I feel that these two games, because they've started the season so well. Now we're getting into the run of the 3 games a week situation, and we're starting to see, because at the start of the season, obviously they won 5 out of their first 6 games. Everyone's saying how well they've recruited and the squad's looking very strong. But actually, as we've gone into this period, now it's starting to rear its head. The issues of the fact they haven't really replaced Caicedo with a ready-made replacement. Carlos Baleba is obviously a talented player, but he's not ready to play at the top level of the Premier League just yet. There are concerns there. The number of changes around that midfield area. I have to say, one of the biggest issues so far is all the new signings, bar James Milner. I would say there are a couple of question marks over in regards to Igor doesn't seem to be ready to be playing there. Ansu Fati hasn't really got going yet either. So there's an issue there. We don't know who he prefers up front. Evan Ferguson obviously got that hat-trick against Newcastle. He's not really been seen much since then. I know he's had an illness to deal with.
And his illness, and
with the injuries to Pascal Gross. So it happens any side, but a couple of injuries can always rip a hole in any team. And the Gross and Milner injuries, and Lallana as well, have clearly had an impact. But I think the chopping and changing is just a sign of the fact that De Zerbi is clearly not set or comfortable with a team yet. And he wasn't. You've got to remember when he went on a winless run, I think about 5 or 6 games when he first joined. And that was when he was trying to work out his best formation. He played a 3 at the back, similar to Graham Potter. I think for the Chelsea game was the first time he used a back 4, and he continues to use that for the rest of his time as a Brighton manager. We're in this sort of similar situation where he's just trying to work out who fits into which position where. I think Mo Dahoud as well. I'm still not entirely convinced of him as of yet. I still think he's probably lacking a bit of sharpness, maybe. So I think he's lacking a bit of trust in these new signings. He is a technical player, but in terms of which I did expect the physicality of the Premier League, I did wonder if that would be an issue, and it might be at the moment. So there are a number of issues with the new signings, which I think is causing De Zerbi to chop and change, and I still feel he will for the Liverpool game, but I think obviously he knows he's not. He's a very smart man. That if he continues to do that, results will continue to be an issue. And he's playing, unfortunately, a Liverpool team, unlike last year when he played Liverpool and they beat them 3-0 at home, where Liverpool were were not at the races and weren't particularly in a good period. They're playing a Liverpool team that's really, really strong at the moment and playing very, very well. And if the Diaz goal hadn't been ruled out, may have even won that game last weekend. So it's a difficult game for them, and it's the way that Liverpool are playing. It could be a game, as I said. This is the issue at the moment: is if a goal or 2 goals go in, I feel Liverpool are a better team than Marseille. I don't know if Brighton will be able to get back.
I think Liverpool are in a pretty good place at the moment. And I was listening to Klopp's interview after the Union game, and his focus was straight away on Brighton because they suffered a couple of bad defeats against Brighton last season, and I think that still irritates him, and he'll have them really fired up for this game, I think. And it's the only thing I think with the changes that there's an international break coming up after this, so you kind of think, well, maybe there could be a bit of momentum from the Marseille game just to get them out there again. But I guess it just depends how they recover. They would have taken quite a bit out of them, that second half performance. So there'll be a lot of sort of recoveries. Perhaps Adam Webster might come in for Van Heck, but maybe Billy Gilmore as well from the start in midfield. And I don't know whether Solly March will go again, but I'm hoping that there aren't as many changes as he has made in recent times. But yeah, we'll see.
We will, but I mean, you're right about the thing is the thing that will play on Jurgen Klopp's mind an awful lot is I don't think his side has ever been. They've been beaten, obviously, under him, but I don't think they've ever been outplayed as much as they did when they came to the Amex last season. They were beaten 3-0, but they were well and truly beaten. It could have been 4 or 5. That Brighton were in control. We talk about that control that Brighton have had in games. That was, I think, one of the best examples of it, playing one of the biggest clubs in England, one of the most successful teams the last 5 years, and completely outplaying them. Yeah. I think that's what will play on Jurgen Klopp's mind. And obviously, as we said, the personnel has changed since then, so we can't expect a similar sort of performance. But Liverpool will be wanting to seek vengeance for that game in January this year.
Yeah. No, it should be another good occasion at the Amex. Hopefully, Brighton can recover in time. But no, do look out for the all our coverage from Marseille. Ian Hart, who was just on the podcast earlier, he'll be sending his column in a bit later on. Hopefully, giving some colour and some background about what it was like to be a Brighton fan on such a big European night for them. And also, we got Sam Morton's player ratings online, plus a roundup from myself about what's how the game panned out as well. And we'll also be looking ahead to the Liverpool match as well, which is on at Sunday at the Amex Stadium. But thanks very much for joining us, Frankie, and for going through that. Quick prediction for Liverpool.
I'm going to go for I think 2-0 Liverpool.
2-0 Liverpool. Yeah. I kind of think a draw would be a good result for Brighton for this one. But
it would.
Yeah. Well, catch up with everything on sussexworld.com. And thanks again, Frankie.